How you going, guys? Curtis from Cutting Edge Engineering. Today's job, we have a John Deere grader in to have its blade replaced. This is a John Deere 770 GP. This is their mid-range size machine, so there are smaller and there are bigger. This size machine are commonly found for doing roads and construction works around new building estates and stuff like that. They're not really a mining machine. They could use them on the haul roads to clean them up, but they generally run much bigger machines on a mine site. And this grader does look new because it has just had a paint job. So the grader originally came in to have its blade skin replaced. It also needed the bottom guide on the back of the blade that the blade slides along replaced. So the blade skin and the blade guides are going to wear out sooner or later. It is just the nature of the way things work. So even with the best operator and the best maintenance, you will have to replace them at some stage of the grader's life. After the grader arrived, I did my inspection of the machine, and I noticed there was going to be a few other things that were going to be a massive problem. So I noticed that the blade skin is actually still in really good condition. It is still quite thick and it doesn't look like it needs to be replaced. The blade guide is worn out. It's not the worst one I've ever seen, but it does affect the ability for the grader to do final trimming. Because of the way the blade sits into the cradle, every time the operator is to move it left to right, the blade is essentially jumping up and down as it's going over those worn areas. So that does affect the way the grader can trim. But when I got around to the back of the blade, I noticed there were two holes worn into the original blade body itself, and there was a big crack that runs from one side all the way to the other, where the blade guide mount gets welded onto. And that's a serious problem because that is the main blade structure completely worn away. So if I was to try and remove the blade skin and the guide while there was so much of the blade structure missing, the chances that it would pull out of shape and be unusable are just far too high. After talking with the owners, we decided it wasn't worthwhile trying to repair it because of the issues we're going to run into. We're just going to replace it. The owners of the machine were not aware on how worn out the blade actually was. Because these machines can go for a 6 to 12 month contract, once this finished its last contract, it went to the paint shop, got its paint job, and then it came to us to have a few more repairs done to it. Most graders don't come with wear skins on the blade structure itself. This blade skin was put on the blade after the damage was done, so it was too little, too late. The customer has ordered in a new blade. It is not genuine, it is aftermarket, but it has everything on it. It is basically a bolt-on, bolt-off system. Because this machine uses GPS to control how it grades, we do have to change over some of the GPS bracketry and fit them back onto the new blade. So let's get onto it. While the blade is standing up, everything is nice and easy to access, so anything that we need to take off the blade in order to fit to the new one, I'm going to take it off now. First thing I'm going to take off is this GPS mast, because it is very expensive and I don't want to hurt it. Loose.
What a beautiful day. Be about 32 degrees, but nearly 50% humidity here. Not a cloud in the sky.
Now with those off, we can take the pin out that holds the blade slide cylinder in place. This could potentially be the hardest part of this entire job because they can just lock themselves in place and they never come out. No. It's locked in the end of the cylinder. So these pins always seem to lock themselves in place. They aren't greased, they just run dry. So what's happened here is the bush in the end of the cylinder rod has grabbed a hold of the pin and it's probably rusted itself in there and it's going to be a nightmare to remove. What we're going to do now, we're going to get the oxy out here, going to heat the end of the rod up and hopefully relieve a bit of the pressure from the bush onto the pin and hopefully we'll be able to draw it out.
Jesus.
So that went really well, even though I did have to heat it and pull it out with a come along. That went pretty good. Generally you've got to either lance the pins out or you cut the bracket off the blade and then you deal with the cylinder rod with the pin jammed in it later on. But it's way too hot out here today. The cameras are overheating a lot. We're having to stop doing what we're doing and letting them cool down. So rather than continuing to do that, I'm going to make some room over in the igloo. Although it's going to be a lack of room around the machine with the forklift, it's hopefully going to be a lot easier in the shade and a lot cooler for the cameras.
Get it! What's it? What a good boy. Go get your chicken. Go find it. Come on. Let's go.
So it's much nicer in the shade. I made enough room that I can actually get around the grader with the forklift. What I've done is I've rolled the blade forward so I can access the top clamps that push down onto the top guides. What I'll do now is I'll block the blade so it can't roll off, and then I'll undo the top clamps and get them out of the way. Now that we've got the old blade removed, you can really see how much wear and damage there is on the blade and the guide. The guide is very worn out in its working area. It has a certain range that the operator will work it within, and now you can see how bad the blade is worn and the separation between the original skin and the weld that holds on the guide. That has separated pretty much the entire length of the blade, and it is extremely thin. So it's supposed to be this thickness all the way along the blade. Around the edges it's quite thick, but through the center it's paper thin. So the only thing that is holding this blade together are the ends and the skin that someone's put on the front. Now that I've seen the extent of the damage, I'm really glad we're replacing the blade. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the old inserts that the blade guides work on. So there's not a great deal of wear in the guides that we've just taken off, but there's no point putting a brand new blade with old guide inserts, so we're just going to change them out. It's rough castings. Good. Right, now that all that's done, we can get the new blade fitted. This is a new blade made in the USA, so it is a really good quality. Probably the closest thing you'll find to a genuine part, not like some of the other stuff that's coming in from overseas. And as you can see in here, this one's not made from paper. So there's not really an easy way to fit grader blades. You sort of just got to put them on the ground, shuffle them in under the machine, and then stand them up. If you had an overhead crane or another guy on a forklift, it would be a little bit easier. You can't really access in underneath the circles of the machine with anything. So it's just got to do what you got to do. So it actually worked out pretty good. The blade's sitting in position and it's nice and safe. I've got a chain wrapped around the blade over the back of the cradle so it can't fall forward. Now we can put our top clamps on and our new guides. So the blade's now on, we've got our top clamps in place, so that's secure enough. I can now take it into the workshop. I'm taking it over there because I do have to refit the GPS brackets and I'm going to have to do some welding. So rather than do it out here in the wind, we're going to take it in the shed. Now that I've tilted the blade all the way forward, I can now tighten up the clamps that hold in the top of the blade. Now I can refit the blade slide cylinder. I just need to straighten out the pin plate. Whoa. Now with all that done, I can wind down the bolts to put pressure on the inserts that keep the blade in alignment so it travels left and right nice and true. I don't want to over tighten them because that would apply too much pressure to the inserts. If you apply too much pressure to those, they will wear out very quickly. So you'll see me tighten them down till the bolts touch and then I back them off just a little bit and then wind the jam nut down to lock them in place. As the inserts wear out, the operator or a mechanic can adjust the bolts to wind the inserts down to take up any slack. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to refit the Trimble GPS pole. It should be interesting because this blade is slightly different in the way it is configured compared to the original one. So we might have to do some modifications, or we might get lucky. Going to have to do some modifying. So now that that bracket fits, I do need to do a modification to the blade in order to fit a standoff here. So the standoff's going to be used to support this end of the bracket. All it is a piece of 1045 material that's been drilled and tapped to suit a certain thread. We keep them in stock for all different threads, metric and imperial, commonly used for attaching something onto a machine such as a guard or a ladder or even a hydraulic pipe. They're just a quick and easy way of fastening something to a machine. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to remove a little bit of material with the oxy, weld the standoff in, and then we can refit the bracket for the GPS pole. So we're not going to be fitting the GPS bracket back to the left-hand side of the blade because this machine only runs a single GPS pole. There is no purpose for it to be there, and the customer has asked, can we not fit it and just send it back to them? Righto guys, so there's our blade replacement completed. There's really only a couple of hours work in something like this, even though we did have to modify the bracket and also weld on a new standoff. Everything went pretty straightforward. It was a lot easier to do a replacement of the blade rather than trying to repair the damaged one. If you add up the cost of what it would have taken to repair that damaged blade, plus the new wear skin, plus the guide, and all the hours that would have gone into that, it would have actually been more expensive to go down that path than it was the path we chose. So the customer has decided not to put a wear skin on the new blade, and that is because it is a high-hourred machine and he only plans to keep it for another 6 months or so. Because we didn't have to wait for the new skin to be cut and then pressed, we were able to turn this job around very quickly, so the customer's going to be able to send it back to work and start earning money straight away. So that's this one done. Thanks for watching.
I'm just going to try and get a thumbnail photo. What are you doing? Oh, is that the thumbnail shot right there?
How'd you start that? Right, so this is the new blade. It is a good quality blade. Righto guys, so that is our blade. Oh, fuck. It also needs... fuck up. Fuck me. Fuck me, I've lost it again. So, that was good.
But
what?
Is that it?
That's it.
Ah. My camera's overheating.
Back. Fucking sorry.
Oh wow. Yeah, that was lovely. Solid.
Rock solid. Fuck, they fit good. Not. That is not right. Ah, double fuck.
Whoa, what was that? Aliens. What the hell? Wow, it's black. Stop, don't continue. Did you not read the lid?
I thought I picked up the right one. Obviously not. I don't even know where
How old is that?
Probably old, I don't even know where I got it.
Oh, it smells weird.
Right, we're ready.
Whoa, hang on, it ain't even dry. Hi! Oh, you took it off again. Stay, sit. You want that jacket off now? Come on. Is that it? Your work's done. Good boy.